thekimbrownshow.com.
Again, I like to say, to the organization, because who said Tea Party activists are racist, huh? They invited me to come here. So without further ado, let me get into this whole thing, because when you leave here today, you're going to be empowered. You're going to be empowered. You're going to know how to talk to your friends, how to talk to your fellow citizens and your family members about your conservative values without the fear of being called a racist. Without the fear of being called a sellout. If you're sick and tired of being called a racist and you know you're not one, let me see your hands. If you're sick and tired of being called a sellout and you know you're not one, let me see your hand. How can we win this propaganda battle? That's what's going on. Before I get started, let me dispel 3 myths with you. And also before I get started, if you could silence your phones, because we're doing some recording that we're going to use later on. I appreciate that. You can go ahead and silence your phone. Let me dispel 3 myths about this Frederick Douglass Republican movement, this methodology, this mantra we get into. Number 1, the Frederick Douglass Republican movement is not an organization primarily of black folks. This is not a black membership organization. Anybody can become a Frederick Douglass Republican, based on the 4 life empowering values of Frederick Douglass. Number 1, respect for the U.S. Constitution. Number 2, respect for life. Number 3, the belief in limited government. In other words, I like to keep more of the money that I make. Number 4, the belief in personal responsibility. If you believe in those 4 life empowering values that Douglass not only wrote about, but he lived it, that makes you a Frederick Douglass Republican. So what makes you a Frederick Douglass Republican is not color. It's those 4 life empowering values. Myth number 2, that this Frederick Douglass Republican message is about taking the conservative philosophy and sharing it with black Americans. It's broader than that. It's about taking the life-empowering values of the conservative philosophy and sharing it with all Americans. Blacks. Does that mean I need to step back somewhere? Blacks, Latinos, women, young people. Frederick Douglass' story resonates with them. And the last thing is this, that white conservatives cannot effectively engage minorities about their conservative values. Stop believing that lie. Stop believing the lie that you can't engage others who don't look like you in terms of ethnicity. Stop believing that lie. I was hopeful for a Romney Ryan win, but I was not surprised in the outcome. Not at all surprised. Here's the problem we face as conservatives. Number 1, if we cannot find an answer how to inspire more blacks, more Latinos, more women, and more young people to join our ranks, we are toast. We will never win the White House again. And we may, in fact, lose some seats in the Senate and in the House in 2014. We got to find an answer to this diversity inclusion problem. Number 1. Number 2, we must find a way how to defeat the vile and the malicious attacks of the liberals, of the left's propaganda machine. Amen. They call us a racist, we back up. They take our tongue away. They call us a sellout, we back up. They want to humiliate us. They want to intimidate us. We got to find an answer. We got to be able to crack this nut when we talk about the propaganda of the left. We have the best ideas as conservatives. Amen. We have the best ideas, but that's the second battle. The first battle is a propaganda battle. Yes. And that's where we get our clock clean. Let me quickly talk about Frederick Douglass a little bit. I want to make sure you understand Frederick Douglass, that I'm going to get into this whole methodology. Because this Frederick Douglass thing that I'm going to share with you, it's a mantra. I call myself a Frederick Douglass Republican. Now, I am a conservative, but that is not how I describe myself politically. I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican. The word conservative, the word Republican, the word Tea Party, the word U.S. Constitution, the words U.S. Constitution, those words have a negative connotation in this country. Why? We're losing the propaganda battle. If you call yourself a black conservative, a Tea Party conservative, a Christian conservative, you might as well call yourself a black racist, a Tea Party racist, a Christian racist. Why? We're losing the propaganda battle. Don't forget now, back in the 1950s and 60s, it was conservative Democrats who did all they could do to block civil rights legislation. They wanted to hold dear to the doctrine of their racist fathers. Now, as Republicans or independents, we're using the same word conservative. We have a different meaning, but it's the same word. And our definition is we wanted to embrace the values and the principles of the founding fathers who wrote the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. So I'm not saying you don't use the word conservative. What I'm saying is this. You better make sure you define your definition before you use it. Because if you don't, your dialogue, your exchange will not be a pleasant experience. Because people don't think that you're a Bull Connor type conservative and not a Frederick Douglass type conservative. That's the mantra. I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican. I am a conservative, but I'm not trying to climb the rough side of the mountain when it comes to engagement. Frederick Douglass Republican is a mantra. Frederick Douglass Republican. For most folks, that's an oxymoron. They don't go together. Frederick Douglass, an icon of liberty. Republican, because we're losing the propaganda battle, an icon of racism. When you say Frederick Douglass Republican, it piques interest. And it gives us, for the first time as conservatives, a chance to engage and drive the narrative and frame the debate. And once we know those who frame the debate, win the debate. You're following me?
Yes.
I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican. And I believe in the four life and pioneering values of Frederick Douglass. Respect for the U.S. Constitution. Respect for life. I believe in limited government. And I believe in personal responsibility. That's the mantra. Frederick Douglass Republican is also a movement. We are anti-establishment Republican Party. Anti-status quo Republican Party. The Republican Party today does not resemble the party of Frederick Douglass. And what we're doing, as a movement, we're having today's Republican Party get back to where it was in the time of Frederick Douglass to recapture its political distinction. Right. We do it by political activism. And like Douglass says, agitate, agitate, agitate. Okay? That's the movement piece. Frederick Douglass Republican is also a methodology of engagement. It's a methodology. I'm going to say that to last. Now let me get to Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, born 1818 in this state of Maryland. He was born below poverty. See, when you're born into poverty, at least you own your own body. Douglass was born below poverty. He was born into slavery. Homeschooled, self-taught, never been to school in his life. Never wore a pair of shoes until he was 8 years old. Never slept in bed until the age of 10. Homeschooled, self-taught. Let's fast forward a little bit. Douglass escapes from slavery at the age of 20. He escapes from slavery at the age of 20. He escapes from slavery at the age of 20. What did he escape from? Slave master run health care. He escaped from slave master entitlements. He escaped from slave master welfare program. Douglass was a 47%. He was a 47%. He escaped from it. He ran away from it. Why? He wanted his God-given right for free will. He wanted life, liberty, and a chance to pursue that happiness appropriate for he and his family. Douglass got involved in the abolitionist movement. His mentor for a while was William Lloyd Garrison, the great abolitionist. Douglass became the face of the abolitionist movement. Now, Douglass eventually broke away from Garrison. Let me give you two reasons why. One of the reasons why Douglass broke away from Garrison, Garrison believed, And the Jeffersonians believed that the founding fathers gave us slavery in the Constitution, referring to the 3/5 clause saying that blacks are 3/5 of human beings. I am a graduate of the Historical Black College. I was taught, not that long ago, that the founding fathers gave us slavery in the Constitution, referring to the 3/5 clause. Douglas believed that himself at one time. But Douglas did something very interesting. He went back and read the Constitution. And Douglas read the founding fathers' convention notes. Douglas said, wait a minute. The Constitution is not a pro-slavery document. It is an anti-slavery document. Right. The 3/5 clause has nothing to do to say blacks are 3/5 of a human being, but it was a compromise used by the northern free states upon the southern slave states because they didn't want to free the slaves. Douglas gives that clarity in 1861. Douglas said on one occasion, the Constitution, Douglas said, the Constitution says we the people. It does not say we the white people.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. If black folks are a people, then they ought to be included as benefactors of the Constitution.
Yes.
Douglas went on to say the problem is not with the Constitution, the problem is in the application of the Constitution.
That's right.
Let's look at the Dred Scott decision. When the U.S. Supreme Court, dominated by the Democrats, came out and said that blacks have no right, that the white man is bound to respect. The Constitution does not protect him. It's the application of the Constitution. The problem is not with the Bible. The problem is in the application of the Bible.
That's right.
So Douglas broke away from Garrison for that one reason. The second reason was Garrison believed that the best way to end slavery was through moral exhortation, moral persuasion. In other words, the more you preach about a subject, the more you talk about a subject, the more we preach about freeing the slaves, hopefully one day the slave master will get a clue in slavery. Douglas said no. Douglas said the best way to end slavery is through political action. Here's the relationship. Frederick Douglass, Republican. The Republican Party was started in 1854 by Charles Sumner. He had two major planks in his platform: to end slavery and advance the civil rights of black Americans. So remember now, the slave masters were Democrats. The slave masters were Democrats. It was Frederick Douglass who declared political war on slavery. He was an abolitionist. Douglass became the face of the abolitionist movement. He was the one traveling the country, inspiring, motivating abolitionists. This is 14 years now before the Republican Party was started. Encouraging, motivating abolitionists as a catalyst to do something politically to end slavery. As a result, Charles Sumner started the Republican Party. Douglass was his advisor. Douglass is the bad boy. Frederick Douglass was an advisor of 5 U.S. presidents. Never been to school in his life. Advisor of 5 U.S. presidents: Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, Rutherford Hayes, Benjamin Harrison, and Ulysses S. Grant. Douglass was a capitalist. He was a capitalist.
Amen.
He was a capitalist. Something we're told to envy. He was a free market entrepreneur. He wrote 3 autobiographies. 3 autobiographies. He didn't have a ghostwriter. He wrote 3 autobiographies. Douglass owned 2 newspaper companies. Trivia question for you. Douglass passed away in 1895 as a result of a heart attack at the age of 77. 1895. How much money in savings do you think this runaway slave had amassed at the time of his death? Don't give me inflation dollars back in that day. How much money in savings? $500. $300,000, which is the equivalence of $25 million today. Douglass was a 47%er. He became a 1%er.
Amen.
How did he do it? How did he do it? He embraced what we call conservative principles.
Amen.
He is the answer. Let's get into this methodology here, because you're going to be empowered when you leave here. You're going to know how to talk to your friends. You got some liberal friends. You're going to know how to talk to your family members. You know how Thanksgiving is. Christmas. You're going to be able to talk to your fellow citizens about your conservative values, and you're going to be able to do it in a way where you resonate with them, and you will inspire them to join the ranks of your movement, the conservative movement. Now, here's how this whole thing worked. Frederick Douglass, Republican, oxymoron. It is powerful when I say it. because that's my ethnicity. But when someone that's not a African American or a black American says, I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican, you're not seen as a racist. Because what we're saying is our values, the things that we believe in, are in lockstep with Frederick Douglass, who affirms the founding fathers and he affirms the Constitution. Race baiting comes off the table. It comes off the table. Because the two things that the left going to do to attack us as part of their propaganda machine is what? Race card, class warfare. Those two things. If we can defeat those two things, we can turn this thing around in one election cycle. How are you going to call a Frederick Douglass Republican a racist? Douglass was a victim of racism. He had $300,000 in the bank. Class warfare comes off the table. Nobody has done more for the poor than Frederick Douglass. You can't help anybody when you're broke. So Douglass the key. Let me talk about this because my daughter get on me if I don't do it now. I need to talk about the book, not because I'm here to plug the book or to hawk the book, but I need to share with you what works. Wrote a book where the stuff I'm sharing with you now is more detailed. The book is entitled Frederick Douglass Republican, The Movement to Reignite America's Passion for Liberty. This is an action handbook for conservatives. It gives you the information you need so you can engage. What did Douglass say about the Constitution? Well, think about it. It's important to know what Douglass said because you cannot out-victimize Douglass.
That's right.
I don't care what kind of categories of victimization we have in this country, nobody can out-victimize Douglass. A runaway slave. So this book gives you the information you can engage. What did Douglass say about the Constitution? What did Douglass say about the 3/5 clause? What did Douglass say about wealth creation versus wealth distribution? Give me an example. Douglass said on one occasion, he said slavery is based on the distorted philosophy of taking the fruits of one man's labor and giving it to another so he can remain idle. That sounds like redistribution to me. I said that one time and somebody stood up and said, well, no, that's wealth creation because the master got rich. What you're missing is, and I told him this, when I engage in commerce with you because of a product you have or a service you have, and you have a good product and you provide great service, and you become wealthy because I'm exchanging with you of my own free will, that's wealth creation. But if you take my money without my consent, you give it to yourself and you spread it around, that's wealth distribution. The key word is consent. Douglass talked about that. Douglass talked about immigration. You got to understand now, he had two newspaper companies, wrote over 4,000 editorial essays. At that time, 1868, the article he wrote was called, this was a speech he gave, says, Our Composite Nationality. They asked Douglass to comment on Chinese immigration. What he thought about it. Douglass said, this is the best country in the world. For humanitarian reasons, let them come. To improve the quality of life of themselves and their families. In that same speech, Douglass said this, quote, he gave out a process. He said they must bow, quote, to the same law, end of quote. Bow is a form of respect. Douglass said respect the rule of law.
Amen.
Douglass said, two, they must speak the same language. That's what Douglass said. Now, this is not what a Tea Party said. Douglass said this.
That's right.
Learn to speak English, because Douglass believed in assimilation. Then Douglass said they must understand the duties of citizenship in this country. That means to study and value the importance of our Constitution. This is what Douglass said. So now, do you understand why you don't find too much about Douglass?
That's right.
There's never been a movie on Douglass. Malcolm X has a movie. Dr. King has a movie. Nothing on Douglass. Here's why Douglass resonates with women, blacks, Latinos, and young people. How did he resonate with blacks? Frederick Douglass is the grandfather of the Civil Rights Movement. Dr. King is the son of the Civil Rights Movement. When you study Dr. King got many of his ideas and strategies from the writings of Frederick Douglass. How does he resonate with Latinos? Douglass' work ethic, his entrepreneurial spirit. Douglass supported immigration. He supported legal immigration.
Amen.
He didn't believe in the rule of the mob. He believed in the rule of law. Douglass resonated with women. Let me tell you how. 1848 was the first time they had the Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, A.B. Post. 200 women were there in Seneca Falls, New York. 32 men were invited. One man was invited to speak. Who do you think that was? Frederick Douglass.
And how many black women were invited? I'm curious.
I don't know.
Probably zero.
Sojourner Truth was there.
I don't think she was. I think she was pretty dead by then, but I'll let you continue, sir.
Okay, we'll talk later. So, the point is that Douglass was there, he was invited to speak. And he spoke eloquently about a resolution that was passed. Now, the other thing is this, doesn't it resonate with young people? When you look at Douglass's life, he was a slave from birth, age 20. He was a slave. But while he was a slave, he developed an action plan for his life that prepared him for liberty. While he was a slave, Douglass learned how to read and write while on the plantation. And at that time in history, majority of blacks could not read or write. Douglass learned how to read and write while he was on the plantation. And he also started a tutorial program teaching others of slaves how to read and write to prepare them for freedom. So Douglass is a life that resonates with blacks, Latinos, women, young people, all Americans. All of Americans. The quintessential American dream story. The quintessential. We'll call Doug today a constitutional conservative.
That's right.
A constitutional conservative. Here's what we have to our advantage. Douglass wrote these things down. Thank God we have a literary legacy of the writings of Frederick Douglass that trumps and refutes the propaganda of the left. Douglass did not believe in treating blacks like a special class of people. Here's your homework assignment. When you go home, Google LBJ and his commencement speech to the students at Howard University. LBJ went to Howard University and gave a commencement speech. In that commencement speech, he said, you are victims, and you need the government to take care of you. After the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, they asked Douglass, what shall we do to the Negro? Douglass said, leave him alone. You've done enough. You made him a slave. Leave him alone. Treat him fair, but no favor. Treat him fair, but no favor. He's more than a conqueror, Douglass said. He arrives. The problem was the folks in political power couldn't treat black Americans fairly. They came up with Jim Crow laws and things to put us to a disadvantage economically and politically. So this Frederick Douglass thing. So the book talks about how to engage, or the information you need to engage. The books are selling. I can't keep up with them in terms of the sales. But we found out people were not engaging. So I wrote a companion guide to the book. The companion guide is called Mustache Challenges. Now here's how God set me down and come up with this book called Mustache Challenges. When you study the ministry of Jesus Christ, do you remember how the scribes and Pharisees would sometimes try to challenge the Christ to get him to say something damaging so they could discredit him?
Mm-hmm. Amen.
One thing the Pharisees and scribes did not realize that Jesus was a subject matter expert. And he had the gift of taking the challenges and he turned it around and made it a teachable moment where he inspired many of them to join this movement. Challenges. That's what liberals do concern. They want to challenge us. To try to discredit us so they can call us a racist, so they can call us a sellout, so our words can fall on deaf ears. But we got to learn how to take the challenges of the left and you turn around and make a teachable moment. Give you an example. In this book, we identify the 12 most challenges we face. How do you take that challenge and you turn around and make a teachable moment? Say before you met me, you're up here engaged at the local level. Somebody asks you if you're a conservative, what would you say? If somebody asked you before you met me, if somebody asked you if you were a conservative, what would you say? You'd probably say yes. You just lost. The word conservative, the word Tea Party, the word Republican. Those words have a negative connotation. It means racist.
No.
How you turn it around. Kay Carl, are you a conservative? I'm a Frederick Douglass Republican.
Amen.
And I believe in full life and very stuff. Respect for the U.S. Constitution. I respect for life. The belief in limited government and belief in personal responsibility. And sometimes the Christ will answer a question with a question. Do you share those values? This is a center-right nation. Most folks will say yes. Well, guess what? That makes you a conservative. Oh, but it still makes you a friend of the Douglas Republic. Amen. Now, I haven't always been like this. I grew up in a Democrat household. But here's what I want to share with you. What's important, it really doesn't matter which political party you're in. What matters most, are you voting in a way that shows your love and your allegiance to the God that you say you serve. So what we're doing with this movement, we encourage both political parties to embrace the philosophy of Frederick Douglass and help the poor, elevate the poor to become entrepreneurs and employees. Now, your political choice is your personal choice. Here's why I allow myself to vote Republican Party. This is just me speaking. I made my mind up that I did not want to be part of a political party that put my great-great-grandpa on slavery. I'm not doing it anymore. I don't care how much they improve. I don't care how much the KKK improved. I'm not going to join the KKK. The Democrat Party started the KKK. I'm not doing it. Some of us can do that. But if they do it, that's fine. The question is, are you voting your values? Robert Brown Elliott was a black congressman out of South Carolina during the time of Reconstruction. He said on something on one occasion I totally agree with. Robert Brown Elliott said, I am a slave to principles. I call no political party my master.
That's right.
That's what it's all about. So what has to happen, now, just like the Christ had this information, he had it automatically, being an expert, what we must do, we must study carefully to show our self-approval. Read Douglas' autobiographies. Read his first book. Read what Douglas said about himself before you read anything what somebody else said about him.
That's right. That's good.
Then learn how to engage. And stop believing the lie because of your color, your ethnicity, that you can't engage somebody. We've got to grow a nationwide army of Frederick Douglass Liberty Messengers or Frederick Douglass Republicans and explain to people, bring us together, this whole thing called liberty. Whole thing called liberty. One thing I learned about Douglass is this. The slave master had power. Douglass had no rights. The government has power. We have limited rights. That's why the founding fathers wrote the Constitution to limit the power of the government so we can have more rights. The problem is this, what's happening. You have some people in both parties, who want to be our slave masters.
That's right. That's right.
In both parties. They want to limit our rights. They want to tell us how to live. Dictate to us what we should eat. Douglass said on one occasion, he said the cruelty of slavery was not the fact, it was not because of the hard work. Douglass said, hey, I work hard as a free man. Douglass said the cruelty of slavery is when you don't control your own life. You don't control your own body. So when we have a government at the state level and the federal level telling us how to live, that's violating and trespassing to our private property. Amen. This is about private property.
TheKimBrownShow.com